Hello and welcome to another edition of Spindle TV's Thursday night class. How are you all doing? Good to see you, everyone. Hey, Roger S. and Ronnie and Gene Kilmer. You guys were popped in first thing and said hello to me, and I didn't get a chance to type back to you. Hope y'all are doing well. David Heineke, hope you're doing well. Brooks Martin. Brooks, I didn't get to see your most recent emails about some other stuff that you found and everything. I'll get to those this evening and all, but I'm looking forward to that. Interesting conversation we were having today on some of that stuff coming up and all. But JR, good to see you. Ed Newman, good to see you. And Keith, Roger Brown, Keith Kessler, everybody's popping in. That's good. Let me get everything going on here. Jeff Smith, good to see you. There are no Dropbox files or anything, so no link tonight. We're going to be talking about the texturing toolpath. So we're going to be kind of project specific or toolpath specific. Should I reiterate that? Toolpath specific on our topic tonight regarding, how we can use the texturing toolpath to help maybe enhance a few things for us, right? Give us a little bit of style and pizzazz and things like that. But before we jump into hey, Big Daddy Fish, good to see you, man, and Gary Owen. Before we get jumping into all of that, I want to go take a few minutes at the beginning of this class to go over something from last Thursday's class, the G-code class, one little segment. I wanted to just clarify one thing because I think it might have been a little bit confusing. I kind of went back and looked at, how I was describing it and all. And so I want to make sure we go back and do that. But also I want to talk to you about I have come into a project where I find myself having to use a special profile bit to achieve a particular cut. So on a part that I have here, this cut, if I'm cutting everything out on it and all, this cut has an inward angle, an undercut. Right. And typically, if I were going to address something like that, the part would be turned upside down. And then I have this outward angle that I could, kind of work my way around with a modeling toolpath or something like that if I was, creating this in Vectric. But I wanted to talk to you all in another class coming up about using specific bits with specific profiles, rope bits and OG bits and roundover bits and, barley twist router bits and things like that, where we can use these router bits on 2D vector type profile cuts and pocket cuts and things like that to achieve a certain cut that we need to do. And in my case, I have here an angle that's from the top to the bottom here. It's a 7.8 degree angle, inward cut. And I talked with the customer and said, hey, I'm going to increase that angle just ever so slightly to an 8 degree angle instead of 7.8. It's going to go to an 8 degree angle. This way I can use an 8 degree dovetail bit that will end up cutting down. It'll cut straight down, but then it will move over, kind of like a last pass type thing. But it'll move over at a certain depth so that when it cuts, it will achieve that angle for that profile cut. So I won't have to do this as a two-sided job or anything like that. And I'm not holding the bit right, but that angle cut and all. So using, special profile bits or certain bits to create a special profile and in combination of bits to do certain things, that would be something that I want to have a class on with you all. One of my favorite examples, and let's switch over to the Vectric software as I continue this conversation. Let's see here. We are on channel camera number 2. Let's get me down in the bottom left corner. Let's get me down here. And let's go into the Vectric software. And let's open an existing file, if you will. And let's see here. The file that I'm specifically wanting to find. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Oh, let me search for it. Hold on. I thought I had it pulled up. L-O-C-K. There we go. It should pop up here in just a second. So a project, something like this, is using specific bits to achieve a specific cut. We all know, or we've all heard of, a lock miter joint, right? A lock miter joint that we would use a lock miter, router bit that, has a special profile on it and everything to create that. But on our 2 parts and everything, using a combination of bits such as an end mill, the Magnate 6124 slot cutting bit, and an Amana 45700 V bit, we can use specific, or we can be bit specific on certain cuts and everything to achieve, what we want to achieve. And we can achieve, our end goal, using a combination of router bits, right, on the CNC. We can create specific types of cuts and things. And so I want to have a class on that where we're talking about, like even a raised panel design, like on a door panel and all, using special bits to create that raised panel instead of doing a 3D, having to have a spire or something to do the 3D cut. We just need the 2D vectors and the router bit or bit combinations to create that profile or that cut or whatever it may be, right? So I'd like to have a class coming up with that. So I think that's what we're going to probably do next Thursday. And hopefully you might find that interesting, right? Okay, cool beans. All right, now to go back and talk about something that I specifically want to clarify with you all. In last Thursday night's class, we did the G code class and everything. And when I was talking about the radius cuts and everything, and our start points and our end points and the center point, that I, J, K type, designations and everything, I don't think I was, really clear with my instruction. So the program I'm in right now is my motion controller program that runs my CNC. And I'm going to copy a little G code in here. I'm going to make this, see if I can make this. The window gets bigger, but the text doesn't. So hopefully you can see it pretty well. But I've got a G17 designation working on my XY plane, G20 Imperial, G90 Absolute, G0 Rapid, and then my actual cut. Now, when it comes to an arc, and let me see if I can clarify this a little bit clearer. When it comes to an arc and the center part, we'll use this as an example, the center of that radius, think of a radius now. When it comes to creating that cut, you have to look at where the bit is starting from, your start point, and then your end point. And then the I, J, K reference, I represents X, J represents Y, K represents Z. So in this case, we're just dealing with I and J, X and Y. represents the center part of this radius, right? Well, I wasn't very clear in how we see this and what that start point, what is the start point, what is the end point, and that kind of thing. So what I'd like to do is in my controller program here, let me see if I can kind of zoom in. Let me see if I can upload this here and get zoomed into it. On a particular arc, this line here where this red dot is, that line designation is X8, Y from my 0 point. It's 3.25 inches up. That's the start point. And where it's going to end, my end point is the next line, X 7.25, Y 2.5. And that IJ reference of the center point of the arc that it follows is based on the kind of the start point where the X started from. Notice it says for the I, which represents X, the center point of this arc is back negative 3/4 of an inch from where the X started. So if I were to back up 3/4 of an inch here, this is where the center point of this radius is, right? And then the I, which is represented by J, where that center point is and everything, it's 0. It's kind of where it stops, you know. It's 0. The I, and I shouldn't say the end point. I'm sorry. My starting point, I, up and down, that's 0 right across here. Where this arc center point was, which is kind of right here, that's where it started from. So I didn't have to move to get to the center point if it were virtually moving, but X did. X, to get to that center point, had to back up 3/4 of an inch. So our start, our end X, Y, and coordinate, and then it's always from the start point. It's an incremental distance. Back 3/4 of an inch on X, 0 on Y, because Y didn't move any up or down. It just went straight back, right? So Y is 0, in this case J, and negative 3/4. X had to move back to find that center point. When I was explaining it, when I explained it in the class, I explained it as everything came from like where you were going to land, right? Where you were going to end. That's where the negative, you know, the I and the J came from and everything. And that's not true. It's from the start point. So you look at the line above where your current X or Y, it might be a couple of lines above, right? Wherever your last known X position and your last known Y position is, when it's turning a corner, in this case clockwise, so it's a G2, but when it's turning a corner from that start point, it's an incremental move back 3/4 of an inch for X to get to that center point of that radius, but Y doesn't move. You know, Y, the X is just backing up. So that's my IJ reference. And then the line of before, the numbers, the X and Y coordinates before that I and J are where my router bit is going to end up. So if I were running this here from my XY0, my router bit would travel up to that start point, and then it's just going to make that sweep. Now, to make it make even more sense, if my X and Y coordinates, start points, and my X and Y coordinate end points are the same, then the software will automatically assume that we are doing a circle, right? So because the points on here, the start point and the end point is the same position, then the bit is cutting around in that circle, and the center point of that circle, the X from that start point, the X has to travel back 3/4 of an inch and the Y doesn't move up or down. So it's just Y0, you know, it stays on that horizontal line, but X had to back up 3/4 of an inch. And that's the center point of that radius, right? Of that, you know, in this case, the full circumference, because my start points and my end points are the same. Okay. So if I were starting here and I were doing kind of a half circle, if you would, right? My end point of my Y would be the same, but 3/4 and 3/4, I'm 1.5 inches back here. So I would be 1.5 inches back from here. I got to do it over here. Sorry. If my end point here is 6.5, or on my, you know, that next line, then let me move this out of the way. Dadgummit. Hold on a second. I'm still working off that same radius. Y had to, you know, stay where it was. X backed up 3/4 of an inch. But now my start point for X and Y and my end point, Y ends at the same location, 3.25, but X ends 1.5 inches, 3/4 and 3/4, right? 1.5 inches back. So 8 inches minus 8 inches is my start point, minus that 1.5 inches is 6.5. And so that's that half circle. All right. So I'm hoping that's all. I'm not going to go any further than that. That's the explanation. I just want to make sure that you know that the way I initially clarified it is when I was writing that line of G code, I was saying, you know, it's where you end up and stuff like that. And I was using the wrong terminology and everything. Okay. So your IJ locations are always from the start point, where the bit is before it starts the turn, counterclockwise or clockwise, G2 or G3, right? With that start point, that location, wherever the bit has to travel to get to the center point of that radius, that's your IJ designation. And then your line, one of your lines, most likely the line above that you're working on, that's where your last known X or Y location are. But the line that the IJ designation is where your bit is going to end up. Okay. So the X and Y on that second line is where your bit's going to end up. But the IJ designation is that incremental move to get to the center point from where it started. All right. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right. Let me close out of that, minimize that, and everything. That was it. It was just a clarification on last week's class. Go back and watch last week's class. The files in Dropbox are updated with a simulation video, so you can actually see the run of that, that part, this part that we did here. You can actually see the little simulation of the run and everything. But definitely check that out and everything. All right, let me answer a couple of questions really quickly here. That sounds like it would be a great class. Thanks, Keith. I appreciate that. Mind blown, Roger. You had me as soon as that joint came up. JR, like a lock miter joint. Yeah. End mill, T-slot bit, and a 90-degree V bit. You can make it happen on a CNC. Right. So, yeah. I tried to talk Garrett Frome into when I was on his as a special guest. I showed him that and said, you need to put a 3-piece bit set together with a slot bit, an end mill, could be an end mill, 1/4-inch end mill, a slot bit, and a 90-degree V bit, and sell it as a lock miter bit set. All right. Anyway, let's get back to class here and everything. Let's talk about texturing and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm repeating myself, but I think that would be a good class to see how we can take a complex cut, simplify the tool pass in the cut with just using a specific bit to achieve, or a combination of bits to achieve that end goal. It's a great lesson. I think it's a great lesson. I always enjoy it. All right, let me just show you. We're going to create a couple new designs from scratch, but let me come in and show you the example that was in the thumbnail and what I'm referring to when it comes to textures. So I've got a sign here, Bob's Bait and Tackle. Fresh live bait, shiners and night crawlers, cold beer, hot food. What more can you ask for from a bait and tackle shop? You know, that when I would go fishing on the Gulf, there would be there's this wonderful little bait shop that was right before the boat launch and everything. And we would go there, we would get ice for the cooler, we'd get drinks, and they had these amazing barbecue pulled pork, almost like in a blanket, if you will. It was kind of a burrito wrapped real tight with this amazing pulled pork barbecue in it, and they wrapped it in aluminum foil and all. And so we would get that, we'd get drinks, bait, and any whatever tech we needed. We'd be out on the ocean, and that was our routine. Every time that we went out, fishing and all, we always made that stop, got our bait, got our, in case beer or sodas, right? I'll say sodas, but no, drinks, and then that sub. That sub. Oh my God! So yeah, it's not really a sub. It was more like a big old burrito. It was huge. So this is my example. Now, the place that we went to wasn't called Bob's. That was just something I came up with for the thumbnail. But when we look at a project like this and everything, and let's say that we were just doing a raised V-carve, and all to make a really nice looking sign, and everything. So let me make sure that I am, I'm out. I was making sure my head was out of the way. I was out of the way. We could make a great looking sign if we were painting it right. We could have a very nice kind of, detail sign. Let me switch this up to a black, right? Kind of black and white, so it stands out, right? So really nice, nothing wrong with it at all, right? Nothing wrong with this sign at all. We could, like I said, paint it, look sharp, all that stuff. But we could take it that one step further. Now, in the case of adding a texture using the texturing toolpath, and that texturing toolpath in your Vectric software is that third row down, second icon in, texturing toolpath. And you can use any type of router bit, a ball nose bit, tapered ball nose bit, end mill V bit, and your texture will vary depending on the type of bit that you're using. So a V bit, we're going to have more of kind of a slicing type texture and things. It might be, I might use a V bit if I'm kind of trying to simulate some type of wood grain where I need like like little sharp cuts, and everything, or maybe a little distress. An end mill, a flat end mill doing a texture is real choppy, and we'll see the different types when we do we'll use different tool bits and all this to look at the different types and all, but it kind of creates a real choppy texture. And a ball nose or a tapered ball nose creates kind of that spoon scoop, that hand hewn look, like if I was taking a spoon chisel and I was just doing some chip carving or chisel carving. Chip carving is not the right term, but some nice little chisel carving and all, and kind of just creating that texture. That ball nose bit's going to give me that look, right? So we can get all kinds of different looks. So when it comes to creating the toolpath for that texture and everything, we want to make sure that we select and ignore this line going through. That's the next topic here. But we need to select all the vectors. And notice I didn't select the inside of the bass or the fish here. Sea bass is not a regular bass, but I only selected the outside vector, kind of that island that the bass got carved on, is because the texture is going to get carved out here. There's no texture getting carved inside that vector, so that the vectors of the bass didn't need to be selected, but everything else needed to be selected because that texture has to carve around these areas, right? And so if we have a standard texture in there in our cut, then we can just take this beautiful looking sign that's nothing wrong with it at all, and we can enhance it a little bit by giving it some character. And I'm using an 1/8 inch tapered ball nose bit. I love an 1/8 inch tapered ball nose bit, but we can give the background just a little bit of character, right? And with that, you know, we can kind of just give it something, that extra element that it needs. Now, we could even take it a step further, and we could create a particular vector. In this case, I created a vector line that kind of went in a kind of a wavy pattern. Almost think about like a horizon line off into the distance. You're on the ocean, you're on the lake, you're on the whatever, but off to the distance, you have that horizon line where the sky meets the water, right? And so this kind of, for me, represents that horizon line. Now, when I take that vector along with the other vectors and I start trimming anything, I get rid of anything that's outside of the vector I don't need, but anything inside where I'm going to put the texture, I need to trim. So I need to create this boundary. So everything inside here, those vectors need to be, but anything outside of this vector gets trimmed away. And I'm only creating that boundary where I want the texture to show up. Now I can come in and create that similar same texture toolpath and all. And this time it's only going to create the texture in that area of the sign. And so when I'm looking at it, now I have kind of this sign here, and visually, for me, visually, this is kind of like a choppy day on the seas, right? The water, a little bit of a choppy day on the water, fish jumping out of the water and everything. The horizon sky, which is the smooth part in the background, and it kind of creates that extra element for me, right? And that's where, you know, textures and things can help enhance some things, right? So what I'd like to do is we are going to create a few projects. We're going to create a few projects, and we're going to add a little bit of a texture here and there and see what we can do. Right now, the first project I want to make is going to be a little gift box. It's going to have a top and a bottom and a lid and everything. And on that gift box and all, it's going to be for a custom pen and pencil set, right? And so on my, let me just see. I don't even remember what the widest part of my pen is here. 0.5. Okay, 0.5. Need to know how big to make my slots. So for this project and the length, hold on a second here. I'm at 5 1/4 inches overall length. So let's go 6 inches. To give me some room. So on this, I'm just going to have the board. I'm going to have the board just no bigger than really what I need and stuff, right? So let's go. We'll go for clamping purposes and everything. Let's go 8 1/2 inches on the length. On the width, my pen's widest diameter, my pencil's probably about the same. It's a little bit thinner, but it's a 1/2 inch. So let's say that I want a 3/8 inch wall in between the two pockets. So 1/2 inch, 3/8 wall, another, let's go 1/2 inch, keep it kind of consistent and everything. So that's 1 inch and 3/8. And then I need my other walls there. So let's go 1.375 plus another 3/4. All right. And then I'm just going to use 3/4 inch material. Okay. So in here, let's draw out the vector, right? So I'm going to let's go. I was overall 5 1/4. I'm going to go 5 1/4, 6 inches plus another 3/4 and 3/4. Bear with me just a second to do the math. 7 1/2, 7.5, and the height is going to be the same height as my board, which I can't remember what it was. 2 1/4, 2 1/8, 2 1/8. So let's go back. All right, 2.125, 7.5. Okay, and let me get that centered. Now on my piece of material here, I want the lid and the bottom to be, it's going to be kind of a fitted box. You know, I want them to be kind of cut on the same section of the board, so the grain pattern is somewhat the same. You know, so I need to go back to my project board, and I need to kind of double up my project board. So I'm just going to cut it out of a 1x6, which is 5 1/2. 5.5. And then we'll go here, hold down the control key, drag that there. Now I'll do all my vectors on one, and then I'll kind of mirror and copy them down. So I'll go ahead and center them, you know, on the material, just so if I do like a mirror copy or something, I can make sure it lands in the right place and all that stuff. On here, I'm going to, on the box itself, it's going to have rounded over on the top and all, but I'm going to do that at the router table. I think for the most part, you know, using your tools that are in your shop, and I have a router table, I can put a round over bit in, using your tools in your shop. Not everything has to be done on the CNC, right? So for this, the first thing I'm going to do is on the first rectangle, it's going to be that 1/2 inch tall, 1/2 inch wide, and by 6 inches. I'm going to center that left to right, and if you recall, I wanted like at least 3/8 of an inch in between. So I'm going to mirror this down. And when I mirror this down, I need like a reference line, right? So I'm just going to draw kind of a straight 90-degree line here. Oh, hold on. Let's talk about what just happened there. I want to show you that in just a moment. But before I do, let me get out of the line tool. I want to take this and select this line, and I want to mirror by flipping about the line, right? I want to kind of put those two together here. And like I said, I'm looking for roughly about 3/8 of an inch in between. And I think I'm a little heavier than 3/8. I think I'm more like in the 1/2 inch range and everything. Oh, I almost nailed it just by eye. Oh my goodness. 3.769. Holy camoly. All right. Probably couldn't do that again if I tried. Okay. So if 3.769, I'm going to use my move tool. I'm going to move this one down, a relative move. So it's going to be a negative number. I'm going down. Basically, I'm going to go 3.769 minus 0.375 equals, I don't know what in the world I just typed in there. Let's try that again. Let's do points this time. 0.375 0.3769 minus 0.375 equals, that looks more like it, but I need to divide that by 2. And that still is not right. Remember some big old numbers. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, I can do this. 0.3769 minus 0.375 equals you know why it's doing that? Because there's a negative sign in front, because I'm an idiot. There's a negative sign in front, and it was doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. Let's try this again. 3.769 minus 0.375 equals. That's more like it. That's more like it. Now I need to divide that by 2 because I'm moving that one down and this one up, right? So divided by 2 equals. All right, so just barely a little bump down. Same thing here. I'm going to move this up. 0.3769 minus 0.375 divided by 2. Why am I being so anal? No real reason. It's just me, right? So if I've done things correctly, how is that even possible? Hold on. The undo button is not my friend. All right. So I moved 0.0019 is what my magic number is. Let me do that one more time. God help me. Move. We're going to move. This is going to go down, right? I forgot to put the negative. I did the positive. So all I did was move this one up and move that one up instead of this one down. I forgot. I took the negative out, but I forgot to put it back in. Let's do it right this time. Jeez, as long as you can laugh at your screw ups, that's what counts. So 0.3769 minus 0.375 equals, right? Divide that by 2 and then put a minus sign in front of there so it knows to go down. I can apply that, right? Okay, beautiful. And then here I can do the same thing, but this time it'll be a positive number. All right, let's divide that by 2. Okay, now that little bit of movement, which you can't even see it hardly whatsoever, but if all is correct in the world, I should be at 0.375, right? All of that, Lainey, you could have just, drew. There's so many ways I could have done that and it would have been faster, but hey, what the hell? Okay, so that's going to be, these will be the vectors for my little pocket for my pen. Now, knowing that my router bit, when it comes in and cuts this and everything, it's going to, if I'm doing a flat pocket, right here, bear with me now. If I'm doing a flat pocket and I'm doing just a pocket cut, it's going to create radiuses here based on the bit that I'm using and everything. If I want that curve, right? If I want that curve, then I'm just going to use a single line, not a rectangle. I'll just have a center line where my bit will cut along the center line here with that box core or core box router bit. If I want it to have that cup at the bottom, right? So I'll go ahead and throw that center line in there as well. Either one of those two vectors are going to serve their purpose. Okay. Now, let's get that out of here. All right. Now, I need to create a vector for the lip that's going to happen. So the top area, or should I say the bottom area, this is my bottom and everything, it's going to have a recess all the way down the outer edge. And my top is going to be a fitted top that fits over that edge. So in here, I'm going to offset inward, and I'm going to offset inward by however much I want that outside wall to be. And I'm going to go just 3/16. So 0.1875. And I'm not going to create square corners. Okay. Or I'm not going to check off create square corner because inward it's going to kind of create them by default anyway. Now, on this bottom and everything, my router bit, when it comes in cuts, it's going to create this rabbit, if you will, around the outer edge of the bottom of the box. And I need to let the bit go over this line, not this line, but the outside line. So while I'm in my offset tool, I'm going to offset outward a 32nd of an inch. And that's going to give me the 2 vectors that I need to do the toolpath. And in this case, how far do I want the top lid to slide over that bottom and everything? So let's go 1/4 of an inch and all. I am going to use an 1/8 inch end mill, and we'll calculate this, and this will create that kind of recess, that pocket around the outer edge. Now, just so for visual purposes, so you get it, I'm also going to create the profile cutout. This is going to go all the way through my material. I'll use a 1/4 inch end mill on the outside of the cut. No tabs. This is for visual purposes only, right? So when this gets cut out here, okay, let me get rid of the waste for a moment. So this ledge here, now my pen pockets, pen and pencil pockets are going to get cut in here, right? And so this outer ledge here, that's what the lid's going to have an open pocket inside. This whole area in the lid is going to be pocketed out so that when it slides down over, it's kind of like a box fit, like a fitted lid and all. I wish I had a sample, but I don't. And everything. So that's the vectors that I've created so far, right? Now, this area here, when it comes to the lid, it needs to be, that vector needs to also be down below in the lid. So let's create a mirrored copy, flip it about job center, and flip that horizontally, because this area is what's going to end up getting pocketed out, right? And I don't want to bottom out. Now, my recess, that lip all the way around, I went 3/16 inward, and I went 1/4 inch down, right? Well, when I remove this pocket cut and everything, I don't want to just go 1/4 of an inch. I don't want it bottoming out and everything. I want a little bit of an air gap in there, just a little bit. I don't want the pins flopping around too sloppy and all. So I might go, a 0.275, give me a little bit of room or something. And when I calculate that cut, now, mind you, you're going to say, Laney, you just calculated a cut and there's radiuses there, and the radiuses on the lid don't match the radiuses or the corners. You can't fit a square peg in a round hole. I know that. We're going to fix that in just a second, but I'm just kind of showing some visuals, right, for a moment. But this pocket area, we'll do all the fillets to get everything tight and right in just a moment. But I know you caught that as well. So just letting you know I'm aware of it. Let's, on this profile toolpath, I'm just going to use this vector, cutting on the outside of the line, same depth and everything. So now on the lid, it's going to have this here that fits over that other pocket, right? And so there's a couple of things that I've got to do to make that happen. Number one is when this toolpath here got cut, because the bit is round, it creates radiuses, right? So I need to match that radius on the cut up here. I need to match that radius and everything. That it's an 1/8 inch radius. I'm using a 1/4 inch bit. Or I'm sorry, it's a 16th inch radius. I'm using an 1/8 inch bit. But I need to match that. And then the second thing that I need to do is on this pocket cut is I need to give it a little bit of a pocket allowance. For me, it'll be, about -0.002. Always a negative number because I need to go over the line, because I need it to slightly overcut. Oops. Bear with me a second. Let's try that one more time. -0.002. Calculate. And so I need it to slightly go over that line by that 2/1000th of an inch, and it doubles because the line on the other side, right? Another 2/1000ths of an inch. That's 4/1000ths altogether. Put it in perspective, 3/1000ths roughly is a human hair, right? So I'm just opening up that pocket just a little bit, so it's a nice, beautiful friction fit. It's not too sloppy. It's not too loose. It'll just kind of snap together and all of that wonderful jazz. But in order for it to really fit, I got to fix the radiuses and all that stuff. So I will just have those two vectors match. Now, none of this has to do with texturing, but we got to create the project before we add the texture enhancement to it, right? So let's go back into our here. Let's go to our fillet tool and let's throw in a 16th degree radius, a 16th of an inch radius, because I'm using an 1/8 inch bit. And let's go ahead and fillet this. And let's do the same thing here. Beautiful. Now, since I am going to be using one of two things, I'm either going to be using my bit to just do a flat bottom, right? Flat bottom, not a round bottom, just a flat bottom, pocket it out. Then I would, if I was doing that, just an end mill. I just want to do an end mill on everything. I don't want to change bits or whatever. Let's just think about it. Then I would radius these as well too, because the bit's going to create that radius anyway when these pockets gets removed, right? But I would like a nice rounded bottom and everything, like a little cradle for it to sit in. So I will use a box core bit. And the thing of it is core box bit. I keep saying box core box router bit. My widest part here, my widest part of my pin was 0.41 and some change. 0.77. And so I went a 1/2 inch, 0.5. And so it's slightly a little bit bigger, right? If I use a 1/2 inch core box bit, that 1/2 inch cutting diameter, core box bit and everything, that will give me the width that I need, pretty much, and everything. And I'm not going to be going very deep, so I'll be able to get the pins out and all that stuff. If I need to put a little finger hole or something to make it easier to grab or whatever, we're not trying to get fancy. It has nothing to do. We're doing textures, but I just want to make the project look decent, right? In this case, I'm going to use we'll use the vector as here and here. It's going to be a profile toolpath. We're going to select from my form tools, my box core bits. We'll use our 1/2 inch box core bit. And we're going to cut on the line. I'm going to cut down a quarter of an inch. Nope, a half inch, but I need to add a little bit. So I'm going to go 0.625. All right. And so when I calculate this toolpath, all right, that should give me my two little pockets there. Now this is a deep cut right here, right? But now remember, now there's a 1/2 inch diameter pin sitting in there, and I'm down 5/8. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove some material just right here in the middle. So it's kind of like I can grab, you know, my pen or my pencil from either side from there. And I'm going to right about where the, you know, straight edge starts here from that radius. It's 1/4 inch radius, 1/2 inch. I'm going to kind of mill down to there, right? So for that, in the center here, I'm just going to use it could be an oval shape. It could be a circle, whatever you want it to be. But I'm just going to kind of come in. We'll go something like that. That'll be fine. That's going to be a pocket cut. I'm going to go down 0.625 minus a 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch. I'll just stick with my 1/8 inch bit so my 1/8 inch bit can do a lot of the work and everything. Calculate that. So that will cut down and kind of create this opening. I'd probably like it a little bit softer here on the edges, a little bit softer now, right? So it's not so sharp and all, and I don't want to sand the edges, so I'll round them over. In this case, we will stick with me. I'm not going to weld vectors and all that stuff, but we'll go a profile cut, cutting a 1/4 of an inch deep on the outside of the line with an 1/8 inch step over. And the bit that I'm going to use is my Whiteside 2050 1/8 inch round over. And we'll calculate that toolpath is going to be on the inside of the line. And what that's going to do is that'll round off that edge there. And now on my other two vectors here and here, same cut, right? So, or same toolpath type cut. I could do them all in the same toolpath, but it's okay. We'll just do this, that, everything is the same. Negative 0.125, that step over for that round over. Calculate that. Preview that visible toolpath. And it didn't get the ends there, kind of, because there's no wood here, right? And what has happened here is because my box core bit is a 1/2 inch diameter, when the bit came down, right, it cut that 1/4 of an inch larger here because the center of the bit went at the start of my line. I need to bring those lines in. We'll get it. We'll get it. I need to bring those lines in. I need to reduce their size from the center on the width. I need to take off 1/4 and 1/4, a 1/2 inch. So we'll make this 5.5. Oops, hold on. Cancel that. Unlink the X and Y because I'm changing just the width. 5.5. So that'll bring the lines in. I will recalculate my profile, not that one, it's that one. I will recalculate that profile cut, reset the preview all the toolpaths. So that one, that, and that. And that should give me that rounded over edge. Laney, when you get into the texture, we're getting to the texture next. This one's the most longest of the projects. It's the longest of the projects and everything to deal with. Now, in here, ladies and gentlemen, because my round over bit is only going 1/4 of an inch down right here, I'm going to end up with these kind of lips. If I go any deeper with my round over bit, then it's not going to be rounded over here, right? And my depth, is down here. So I'm going to end up with these lips in the corners. And that's where me as a woodworker, I will come in when I'll do some kind of chisel work and clean it up, a little bit of sanding and stuff. I'm not going to expect my CNC to do everything. And so I'll tidy that up, right? Tidy that up. All right. So the, let me duplicate this. Let me open this up and calculate that. Okay. So now we have getting there. That's that one. Let's finish that up. Okay. Now I need to simply just recalculate all the toolpaths. I'll use the little recalculate all toolpath buttons here. So that way everything will get recalculated with the radiuses that I put in, those fillets and everything. What we will end up with is that where, the fillets match, we have that 2/1000ths of an inch overcut on, the pocket and everything. And now I have a box. It's a fitted box for this pin set, right? By all means, it's nowhere near done, but this just gives you that general idea. So this is my box. Now, what I would like is on the box top, I'll actually want to put a texture in with maybe a name or something, right? So this is going to be a two-sided job. And also all of this stuff, this cutout, this profile cut, that won't happen. That wouldn't happen until I flipped it all over and everything. But I just wanted to be able to create these toolpaths so you could see the, oops, I don't know where that's going. So you could see kind of like, think mentally so you could visualize a fitted box, right? All right. So now for this, I'm going to take a 1/4 inch diameter hole, and I'm going to throw it right about there. All right. These here will be a drilling toolpath. It'll be my alignment pins because this is going to be flipped over for a two-sided job type of thing. So it's going to cut 3/8 of an inch deep with a 1/4 inch end mill, and it's going to be my little alignment holes, and that will, kind of for my flip, right? Now this job is set up as a single-sided job right now. I need to go back into the job setup, and I need to switch it to a two-sided job. I'm going to be flipping along my Y-axis and everything, so we'll set that up. Perfect. Now we're getting to the good part, the texturing and everything. Wait for it. Nope. All right. Got that. And then in my 2D view, I'm just going to take the box lid. That's really the only vector that I need for this because that's the only thing that's getting carded on. And I'm going to copy it to the other side. And then also my 2 alignment holes, because they're going to get cut into the wasteboard. They need to get copied to the other side also. All right, let's flip over to the other side. And on that other side, here, I'm going to offset this vector inward, and I'm going to go inward about 3/4 of an inch. Let me see. Too narrow. Let's go inward 1/2 an inch. Good. All right. And in here, let's put a name, right? So we'll do digital woodcarver owner's name. That's Burl, BURLTICHENOR, and I don't know where. Let's get that centered. And then we'll get it size and all. I want to change up the font, make it look halfway decent. So TICHENOR, good. Let's go in here, and I want to use the Black River. Let's go 0.75. Now, I'd actually like it to be somewhat fitted in this box appropriately. So rather than taking the text and drawing it as a just plain text and then sizing it myself, which this is fine. That looks great. No problem there. But I could have come in and selected this box and went into that text box and chose the option to do the text within a box, right? And then when I was typing and all, it would have fit that in the box, and let's get it centered. It would have fitted it kind of appropriately for me, right? And all. So let me close this. Let me delete this and go back in here. But now I'm using that vector in a box, so it's using this as a boundary. So if I wanted to have no margins where it stretched out to that box, or normal margins, or if I wanted to stretch the characters, vertically or horizontally, I could stretch them out depending on what it is I want to do, right? And so that's, whatever I think would look better. Now, on this here, I want to dress it up just one more little enhancement and everything. Nothing too crazy, but I'm going to take we'll just do a star right now. 5-point star, 38.2. So we have that. Let's size her down. Let's go a little bit larger. Let's bump that over to here. Good. And then let's mirror that to the other side. Okay. Again, probably wouldn't do stars for Burl or something like that. But now in here, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a V carve, right? So this stuff is going to get V carved in. If I were, we're going to look at it a couple of different ways. So let's take a look at it a couple different ways. So as just a standard V carve, I need, now this is the lid. Remember, my lid is 3/4 of an inch thick, but I've already pocketed out 0.27 from the underside, right? Remember, I removed all that material. So my carving can't get too deep. Otherwise, I'm going to, go through, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll kind of set a flat depth for myself. And in this case, 0.75 minus 0.375, which of course, I could have just divided that in two, or I could have just put in my head, 3/8. I can kind of just limit the cut there. So that'll make sure that I cut down, but I don't cut too deep, right? So with that cut, this can get carved in. And then what I can do is around the edges, I'm going to select this vector with it and everything, with these stars and stuff. And I'm going to use a texturing toolpath. Now, I like a ball type texture. Now, this is already small to begin with. So this is about 1 1/8 inch wide, right? If I want small little scoops, I use a smaller diameter ball nose bit. If I want, more choppy or something like that, I can use a small end mill or whatever the case may be. We'll look at different bits and see what looks better. But I'm going to be starting at the top of the board. There's no recess or anything here right at the moment. And my maximum depth of cut, my maximum cut length, I'm going to shorten this, the maximum cut length. I'm going to go about 3/8 of an inch. My overlap, I'll overlap just slightly on 15 degrees. And these numbers, I can program in any numbers that I want. In variations, I can vary the minimum and the maximum. And then if I like it, I can save those settings to my texture folder. And I could always load those settings in on future jobs and stuff, right? I'm going to be using right now an 1/8 inch tapered ball nose, which has a 1/16 inch radius. So that's how far I'm going to step over. And on my angle, I'm going to go just straight across for right now, no angle. But I want the bit to stay away from the edges. I don't want it running right into the edges. It'll look crappy as all be it. So I want to stay away from the edges by at least a 1/16 of an inch in this case, 0.0625. So when I calculate this toolpath, what I want to see, if I go into the 2D view here and I turn on that toolpath visibility, let me turn it on. That is funny that I can see that 2D toolpath in the 3D view, which that's the new enhancement for the Vectric software, but I can't see it in here. I'm not even going to begin to try to guess why that is. So in this case, we'll just look at it in the 3D view. So when I come in here and I do this texture cut, if you will, that looks terrible right now. It's the ball nose bit, this particular ball nose bit is too big. Also, I had the inside of these vectors selected, so it was cutting in there. Didn't want that. Didn't want any of this selected, so I wanted it just kind of around the perimeter. And I did stay away from that 1/16 of an inch, but that it's too much texture. So let's undo the last, right? And let's change it up just a little bit. Let's go back into that. And I'm actually going to switch this up, and I'm going to use the 1/16 inch tapered ball nose. My maximum cut depth was way too deep. So I'm just going to go about a 32nd of an inch deep. Just, I want a nice little enhancement and everything. And of course, I'm going to be doing a nice V cut profile to clean up the edges. You'll see that in just a moment. But the maximum cut length, let's go 1/4 of an inch. Everything is small. This is a smaller lid. It's not one of my big signs, so my numbers have to be smaller, right? I'm going to keep the step over the same, and I'm going to vary the angle just a little bit. And on here, let's go back into here. I need to convert the text into a font because I'd really like to not have the texture on the inside of the vectors and everything and stuff. And so what I'm going to do, I'm not worried about the stars, but the Burl Tishner specifically, I'm going to create an offset. And I'm going to go offset outward. Too many decimal points. Way too many decimal points. I'm going to go a little bit further. Perfect. Close this, hold the shift key down, turn that off, and then hit the delete key to get rid of the rest of the stuff. So on this toolpath, it's going to be the stars, this outside boundary, this star, and here. Then we're going to calculate the toolpath with those lighter numbers, smaller bit, and everything. I believe I did change to the smaller bit. I did. Let's preview that up. Okay. Now, let me see. Let me do the nice edge border. Hold on a second. We're going to cut a 1/16 of an inch deep with a 60-degree V-bit. Why am I not seeing them? Oh, there it is. I was going blind there for a second. Calculate. Okay. Now, it doesn't look that hot. I like better when the letters are raised versus carved in with a texture around them and everything, and the texture down behind the letters being raised. But I do want to clean this up. I want to make this look better. So the 1/16 of an inch offset, I need to be a little less. I need to take that on that texture. I need to take that down some. I need to let it get a little bit closer because already, right, I'm at this boundary right here, which is already a 32nd off. I almost don't mind if the vector hits this boundary, and I don't mind if the bits, hit any of the boundaries really, but I'm just going to go, I'm going to cut this to 0.02, calculate. All right. Let's reset that and preview the Toolpath. Okay. And so could probably, it's a smaller bit. And so that bit has the ability, I could probably get it a little bit. I'm going to leave that be for right now. So not bad, but not the greatest look, right? So on this one, not bad, not great. But let's step it up one little notch here. Let's take select this, not the boundaries here. V-carve toolpath. 0.125 cut depth or flat depth. 60-degree V-bit. 1/8 inch end mill. Calculate. One more change. I gotta think smaller box. 0.625 flat depth. Calculate. Okay. Now my texturing toolpath is going to use the same vectors. It's going to you think about this. I'm debating on, do I want the texture to go in between the letters and stuff? We'll try it without going in between the letters. But this time, same bit, same everything, but this time I need to start at a 1/16 of an inch down. So let's calculate that. And the 20 thousandths of an inch, if I'm looking at where my blue lines are and where they end, I'm not hitting my letters. Getting close, but there's still room there. So I should be able to preview this texture. Okay. So I did hit on the angle there. So let me just, I gotta, that little offset distance has to be a little bit further away. You can see I cut right into the letters there. So undo the last for the preview. And my little offset, which I had set to 0, it has to be something here, right? So I'm going to go 0.04. Okay. overlap is not, I need it tighter. I need it choppier. One more time. I want it choppier. So where's my numbers going wrong here? Overlap. We're gonna go to a 30-degree overlap. The step over, we're gonna cut that down. I want it tight and choppy. I'm not gonna use these vectors here and here. I'm going to use the text vectors. $10-degree angles, fine. 30 seconds, fine. 30%, quarter inch. Let's calculate that. Let's get past this little project and get into an actual sign. All right, undo the last. Now I can see I'm getting much more in the range of what I want, right? I'm, the texture's getting into that area. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want. I want that. So let's do here. We'll do a simple round over on the edges. Now I said I'll round over on the router table. I will, but just for visual purposes, let's see what this looks like. So let's do a profile toolpath. For the round over bit, that should be a quarter inch radius. That should be a quarter inch radius. So I want to come down 0.25. I want to be on the outside of the line. I want to step over negative 0.25. Calculate. Preview the visible toolpath. Okay. And then a profile cut. Cutting all the way through. Quarter inch end mill. On the outside of the line. No tabs or none of that stuff for visual purposes right now. And everything. All right, so I need where on this here, my stepped over a little. This is my end mill, the round over. Good round over, but I need to clean this up. So on that just for visual, I wouldn't do it this way normally, I don't think. Let me see here. I think I stepped over a little bit too far on that bit. So let me go back to the round over. It should be, that should be the exact amount, but let me back it off. I don't know if that's a 16th or not. Let me take a 30-second back. So minus 0.03125 equals, and then put that minus sign there. Minus sign is so it goes over the line. That's what we want. Calculate. Reset the preview. I like the texture on the raised projects and everything, and that's and a tight texture, so a real nice choppy texture and everything. Okay, now that round over went out a little bit further, just by a 30-second. When this profile cut occurs, we should have that smooth transition, right? We shouldn't have that lip. So I had to back off by that 30-second on there and everything to get that, clean cut. Not bad for guesstimating. Okay, so here, I probably want the texture to maybe stay away from those vectors a little bit. But if I go too big on that step off, step away kind of thing, then I'll lose the texture up in these areas here. And the texture's starting down low, so it's not cutting in the top of the letters. So I actually, even though it is cutting kind of at the bottom of them and all, it still looks good. If on that texture here, this 0.04, if I were to increase that, try not to increase too much. What I want to, try to avoid is if I tell it to stay too far away, then I'll lose certain areas where the texture would have went originally. And I might not get the desired result I want. So this is where this is where the Vectric preview is very important. All right, so here you can see, in the case of this little gift box and everything, a nice little texture, right, in the name area. And yeah, you can see just that 0.06. You see how now the edges of the letters and the stars are really clean, right? We got that nice tight choppy texture, and we got the really clean edges the letters aren't cut into. You see that? So that's exactly what it needed, that little bit, right? And so we've got this nice little lid that would be like a gift box. This could be a ring box. It could be a heart with a little texture around it, right? Like a little raised heart with a little texture around it. It could be, a set of wedding rings. It could be anything. I don't know why I just took my hat off. I got a hat head here. Hold on a second. It could be anything, right? Well, let's get into a sign environment and everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. I might make this for Burl. You never know. Save as. And I'll just call it Burl's box. And there'd be a profile cut to cut this out because I'd be cutting everything from the second side. So if I were to finish this job off, I'd switch over to the other side. This vector right here would get copied to the other side. And that would be it. So let me make sure all the toolpaths. So that's that toolpath. That's that profile cutout. That's that profile cutout. So the profile cutouts need to be moved to the bottom of the list. They're always last, right? And they're not going to be included in this. Okay, because profile cut's going to happen on the other side. But I could cut halfway through here, halfway through on the other side, that type of thing. But I won't do that. Let's see here. The drilling operation, I'll put that up at the top of the list. It'll kind of be the first thing that happens. That's the alignment holes. Round over, or that's the okay. Let's preview these visible toolpaths in the 3D view. Reset that preview. This is wrapping this up, basically kind of closing us off. Let's get centered. My drill toolpath missed one of the holes, so I got to recalculate it for that. But anyway. And then we'll answer some questions. A little bit of a round over on the edges. Again, these little inside pockets right here, that's where, as a woodworker, we got to go in and do our little cleanup. So I would take my little corner chisel and, you know, shave that off and, you know, kind of blend it and all that stuff. Dremel works great too. I'm just cleaning up those inside corners because my round over is only going down. That little 1/8 inch round over is only going down that 1/4 of an inch. So that bottom, you know, is, you know, stopping here, right? So I clean that up and everything. And the, so that would be that. Now, I missed on the drilling toolpath, I missed this second hole. So we just got to calculate that in. All right. So that would be that, right? And then on the other side, to wrap this up, side 2 here on the vectors, the profile cut would be cutting both of these parts. Everything else is done. And then the wasteboard alignment holes, right? So the wasteboard alignment holes, they would be first in the list. They're only going to cut 1/4 of an inch deep. Drilling toolpath. 0.25 into my wasteboard using the 1/4 inch end mill. Wasteboard. And then I'll get to your questions, everybody, for the questions. All right, let's go ahead and preview the relative toolpaths. We'll get rid of what we don't need. So this needs to be this toolpath right here. This toolpath and this toolpath need to be deleted. Delete those. All right. Wasteboard alignment holes is the first thing that should happen. That gets cut on the wasteboard, not the project board. So that's done. Boom, 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 and then a cutout. So that's that. That's all them. Let's switch over to the other side. Okay, on the other side, the drilling operation, this pocket, that pocket, box core bit, core box bit, center area, the round over, and then these two toolpaths right here need to get deleted. Delete that. All right, so now let's preview all sides, wrap this up in a nice big bow. A quick little fitted lid gift box with a nice little name and texture area, or it could be, you know, it could be a decoration. It could be a nice little flourish with a nice little texture around it or something like that. In a second, when we do the signs, we're going to create 3 boxes, and we'll create 3 different textures, just textures in the boxes. And we'll look at what an end mill texture looks like versus a V-bit versus a ball nose, right? So you can see that, and then we'll wrap it up for the evening. So we're at 1 hour and 35 minutes. I want to go 10 more minutes, hour and 45 minutes. That's it for tonight's class. So if this preview will get through, boom, boom, the texture, the cutouts. Okay, so on here, let's get rid of the waste. And what we end up with is we have the base, the lid fits on that base and everything. And then on the other side, of course, I'd sand and break the edges so it's soft to the touch, on those sharp edges and all. But the bottom side, we have the nice name and the decorative texture, right? So just a quick, not very quick, an hour and a half long example of making a textured area on a gift box. Okay, so right. Let's go into File, New. This time we're going to do a sign. For this sign, we're going to go 16 inches long. We're going to go 7 1/4 inches wide, 3/4 inches thick. It's a single-sided job. Click OK. Now, what I'd like to do to begin with is, like I said, I want to create 3 boxes. And within these boxes, I'd like to create 3 separate textures so we can get a visual of what they would look like. They're all going to have the same settings, but they're going to be different bits. Okay. And let me answer a quick question. Let me answer some questions and all that stuff. Yes, it would make a great stamp, stamping and all that stuff. What's your hold down method for the gift box? So for the gift box, I would either use 2-sided tape or the painter's tape and CA glue, which I don't do. I do have a vacuum table, so I have that option as well. Hot glue would be a thing as well. But for me, it's probably most likely the 2-sided tape. But I want to make sure that where I put the tape, when that profile bit comes out, you got to remember now on my lid, when it's flipped over, on the lid especially, there's a pocket hole missing, right? It's only kind of that outer rim. So I want to make sure that one of my strips, because my 2-sided tape is about 1.44 inches wide. I want to make sure that, those strips, extend long enough that it's going to catch, even though that pocket's not there, even though there's nothing there, right, that it still stretches across and still holds. Aside from that, tabs, right? I could do tabs. I just didn't do it for the class here, but I could do tabs and everything. But I'm generally either using my vacuum now that I have the Storm vacuum system from Black Box Vacuums. I really like that. Or the 2-sided tape, which is what I've always used, right? And everything. So that's my 2 hold down methods. All right, so let's go into our texturing toolpath and let's create a texture first. Let's start. Our first texture will be a 1/4. Let's go on. I like a little choppy, a little small choppy. So let's go with an 1/8 inch end mill. And on my cut depth here, let's go 1/16 of an inch. Cut length, it depends on how choppy we want it and all that stuff. Let's go 3/8. I really like a 30% step over, so or overlap. We're going to keep that step over. The tighter the step over, the more choppy it is. In this case, I'm going to step over a 1/16 on all of them. 10-degree angle. All right, so let's calculate this one on the right here for the 1/8 inch end mill. All right. Let's go through and let's do the same setting. So I'm going to right click and hit duplicate, and I'll do duplicate twice. So on this second one here, it's going to be this vector, and we're going to switch up the bit. Just switch up the bit. Could be a 90, 120-degree V-bit, whatever you want, 22-degree. I'm just going to go with my standard 60-degree V-bit and calculate that one. And then on this last one, I'm going to use an 1/8 inch tapered ball nose. And again, the smaller the area, the smaller the diameter of the bit, I'd kind of, it would dictate that. But the 1/8 inch is generally on my larger signs is my go-to for texturing. Okay. And let's calculate that. All right, so now let's preview all the toolpaths here. And we got a ball nose, that hewn scoop look. We've got a V-bit. We've got an end mill. So when we're looking at the textures, and let me increase the resolution here so we get a really sharp, oh, that is about as sharp as it is. Hold on a second. Let me see here. Brooks and I talked about this earlier. I don't know if that resolution has to do with Toolpath previews as well, but let me turn up that preview simulation to the maximum here. All right, now, so with the ball nose bit, I would probably space it out a little bit more so I have more little scoops and everything. But this is what I'm got going on here. So we have kind of that, scooped texture. The V bit is kind of a slicey, it's in the depth, probably a little bit much for the V bit texture. I'd probably shallow it up, so it's just like little slices or what have you. And then the end mill, right? The end mill is that, that flat end mill, and it's just that end mill. It's like a real choppy. So depending on our vectors, our size and everything, our texture will vary dramatically based on the settings that we're using. Let me go to the ball nose one here. And based on the settings we're using versus the bit that we're using and everything, it'll change up dramatically. So with this one here, right, in this smaller area, on my cut length, I want a little bit longer, right? So here's what I'm going to do for this one. On this one, I'm going to go a little bit longer, 0.75, a little bit longer, like twice the length. The overlap, I'm really okay with the overlap. The step over, we'll step over, let's go the full diameter of the bit. And we'll keep the same angle. So the only thing I changed is the cut length. And I'm also going to change up on my cut depth. I'm going to really range it up. I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch, but I'm going to vary this down to a 32nd, somewhere around there. right? So it'll really have some level. So when I calculate this, and let's reset the preview on that one and preview the visible toolpath. Now I'm going deeper and shallower, that variation and everything. So I'm getting kind of a more of a, on a larger scale, it could almost be like a really beat to hell brick pattern looking, kind of thing, the way it chops up and all that stuff. The tighter I go, so if I go back in here and bring this back down and shorten this back up, and I'm actually going to shorten it up a lot there. I'm going to keep everything the same. Reset the preview and preview that toolpath again. Now we're a little shallower, tighter, longer, shorter and all. So we get more of a bubbly type texture, right? So in this case, it's, I don't have a visual reference of what that would look like, but, almost like a termite, kind of infestation kind of thing. But, so how you do your bits and all. And now one last thing I'm going to change on this. This will be the last example. I'm going to change the step over. I'm going to tighten up the step over. So instead of the 1/8 inch step over, instead of a 16th inch step over, I'm only going to step over a 32nd of an inch. Keep everything the same here. This should give me these really tight scoops. You can see that. You can see the density in the blue lines, and also this should be really, tight and everything together. And so it really kind of gives me that just like, really chopped look, like in that random pattern and everything. So different bits, different textures, and different looks and everything. So we have the, again, V-bit slicey, end mills choppy, ball nose bit is the kind of textured and things like that. All right, so now that we know that, again, I like that hand. I like the ball scoop look more than anything. But with the texturing toolpath, okay, I don't have to let it randomly choose numbers here. I can actually use vectors as my pattern. So in the last couple minutes here, I could use vectors as my pattern. So we have a tool over here called a texture vector creator. It's kind of based on lines. I like the random pattern, right? But I could also do lines. Let's go a 10-degree angle here. Let's go a 1/4 inch spacing. Amplitude, let's go really small line. Let's go 1/4 inch. Wavelength, let's go a 1/2 inch. Little bit of noise on this middle vector here. We'll preview that. Okay. And let's change this up. Come on now. Okay, so a little bit of noise there and everything on the lines. I could use the selected vectors as the pattern. The cut depth I have control over, but everything else, it's all based. It's not a random pattern. It's based on these vectors, right? So I can come in and I'm not, on the V bit, it might give me something like a little wood grain look or whatever. I'm still going to use my ball nose bit. We'll go a 1/16 of an inch ball nose. But I can calculate that toolpath and, you know, I could have a, a texture based on, that type of pattern, right? Whatever the pattern is. I'm not a big fan of using the vectors as a texture, but instead of regular lines, what if I did a character or a number or a star or something like that? So let's say if I had the letter A here, and in that letter A, I did a texture within that vector. That would be kind of my vector boundary. It doesn't all have to be a square. It doesn't have to be anything, but on this letter here, bear with me for a second. I wouldn't really normally see myself doing this, but I'm going to offset this vector inward, and I'm just going to create these multiple lines here. Let me get rid of these boxes so they're not in our way and everything. And so in here, I now have these multiple vectors and stuff that I can work with, and I can go into that texturing toolpath. I'll use my 1/16 inch ball nose bit. I'll use the selected vectors as the pattern, all except for this one. And then calculate. Right now, in here, I've created a, and with a ball nose bit, it probably doesn't look good at all. So the ball nose bit would not be the way to go. Definitely not. And the lines, definitely not a way to go. Select the outside vector. Let's do that one more time. Let's select the outside vector. And this is why I love the randomness and everything. Let's do that same thing, but let it randomize and everything. And then, we can have, a nicer texture. Now I'm going to outline this. I'm going to take that same selected vector and I'm going to do a profile cut, 1/16 of an inch down with a 60-degree V bit. I could use a 92, but a 60 will be good for me. I could use a 22 for a narrower line if I want a finer line. We'll just do 60 for right now. On the line, calculate that toolpath. What that's going to do for me is give me a nice cleaned up edge, right? And so my letters and all, imagine this as a whole name, right? So if I just, last thing, if I said Ace, let me change up the font just a little bit. Okay. And come in here with this texture, recalculate it on the whole letters now. Reset the preview that visible toolpath. On the, I'm running 4 minutes over what I want. On the profile cut, the V bit, recalculate that toolpath. So it does the outside edges and everything, right? And so now I have that nice, outline, but that name has that texture in it, right? And that could be a nice way. If I had a sign that maybe had a family name or something like that, and I wanted I wanted some different aspects. I wanted depths and elevations, and raised things, V-carved things, and this and that. My top of my letters might be smooth. The top of my letters might be textured. Around the letters might be textured with the top smooth, that kind of thing, right? So in this case, for the sign that we're going to do a border. On the border, I want the border to start at X0, Y0 for the center of my rectangle. I want to take my X-axis and subtract 1.5 inches from that. I want to take my Y-axis and subtract 1.5 inches from that. I want internal radius corners. Let's go 0.625. Click create to create that internal boundary there. Let's go in and we're going to do 2 sets of names. The first one is going to be house numbers. Let's do house numbers. Let's do like a little house sign. So let's go 15497, and let's take that on the house numbers. Let's go centered, no stretch, normal. Let's go wide boundary. There we go. All right, let's take this. I'm going to move it up a little bit because I'm going to kind of go here. And then I'm going to add a rectangle here. Just about there. We'll go radius corners like that. I probably would. Yeah, that's good. Let's see here. And this inside here, we're going to go, bear with me. This is going to make sense here. We're going to go in this area. Sunny Palm Drive. And I spelled Palm. Pamela. Let's do Sunny Palm Drive. Come on, Lainey, we got to wrap it up. Palm Drive. This time I want normal margins. No margins. There we go. And that's a little much. That's a little much. We'll just leave it at that. All right. I want. Oh, hold on. I'm dragging stuff around that shouldn't be drug around. Oh, bear with me. Move this up a little bit more. Okay, now what I'm going to do with this is this area right in here is going to have kind of a raised area. This area, let me bring that up just a little bit higher, right about there. We're going to have another offset. It's going to go out. Offset. Outward 1/8 inch. Oh, I'm so close to my border. Bear with me just a second. I'm going to go a 1/2 inch raise. I need a little bit. I want a little bit more room for myself. So on my height, I'm going to go my y-axis minus 1 1/4 instead of 1 1/2. And on my x-axis, minus 1 1/4 instead of 1 1/2. There we go. Just needed to give myself a little bit more room. Okay, so for this sign, I want a texture in the background. I want the letters raised. Okay, I want the letters raised, but I'd like a little bit of a texture in the letters, right? So I'm going to take my number here and I'm going to offset the numbers outward. I don't think 1/8 of an inch would look too bad. I think that'll look just fine. And I'm going to select this boundary right here. This boundary. Let me close all my tools. Out here, here, inside and outside, inside and outside here. And I'm going to do two things. Number one is going to be my V-carve cut. V-carve toolpath. I'm going to go down 1/8 of an inch. Really love 1/8 of an inch look. 60-degree V-bit. I'll use a combination of a 1/4 inch end mill and an 1/8 inch end mill. And this is going to give me, let's calculate this toolpath. And this is going to give me kind of that raised look. Let's preview the visible toolpath, reset that and preview the visible toolpath. And this is going to be our wrap up. I'm so sorry. Went 2 hours, half an hour over. Gosh, I'm trying to make it where it's short and long, but I get into these things and I want to just tell you more and more. And I do stupid projects that take forever. Can't help it. I'm a creature of habit. Okay. Now, in here, the beautiful, same vectors. I'm going to do a texture toolpath. And I'm going to start at that 1/8 of an inch. Okay. For me, I'm going to use my tapered ball nose. I want my cut depth because it's a little bit wider area. I do want a little bit deeper cut depth and all. So I'm going to go another 1/8 of an inch with a 1/16 of an inch difference. My cut length, I'm going to kind of give it let's go 0.5. My overlap is going to stay. That's going to stay. That's going to stay. And I want to stay away from those borders by at least 1/8 of an inch. So just so you know, for a 60-degree V-bit, 1/8 inch depth, 1/8 inch offset allowance to keep the texture bit away from, that's a good setting. All right, so we're going to calculate that toolpath. Now, what I'm going to probably see is I'm not going to quite get in these upper and lower areas. So I may, so I can get a nice texture all the way around, I may end up making my border, or I may shrink my numbers down a little bit, or I may make my board a little bit wider or my board a little bit bigger to get the really desired look that I want. But you're going to see what we're going to get going on here. All right, so the texture doesn't look too bad, but I don't like that it doesn't go across the top of the numbers, right? So let me just adjust really quickly. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take all of this and I'm just going to bring myself down a little bit, right? So I'm going to I'll keep the aspect ratio this way. But what I will do is I will stretch myself this way. Okay, so I'm giving myself just a little bit more room. And let me see here. I didn't quite get in between those areas either. I would love to see the bit get in there. So let me take and split the difference. I know the bit can definitely get in there now, but I want to split this. I want to kind of divide and conquer. So I'm going to go up one bump here. And I'm going to go down one bump there, right? Just to open up that middle. Now I'm going to recalculate these two toolpaths, right? Recalculate the visible toolpath on this new location. And now I can see the bit can get in there and everything. And so if I reset this, oh, we got to get in the 3D view. Sorry about that. And I preview the visible toolpaths. Now, let me stop myself. Stop in the name of love. It might have done it. I think it only recalculated. It recalculated the whole one. I forgot to have two other toolpaths checked, but it recalculated them all. Okay, great. So that's that, right? So that's the start. Now I'm going to take on this inside vector here, I'm going to do two additional things. Number one, I'm going to do a profile cut, a small amount, but I'm not going to use the 60 this time. I'm actually going to use the 22 degree V-bit. That'll give me a little bit narrower line, right? On the line, 1/16 of an inch cut. I'm going to calculate that toolpath. What that's going to do is that's going to give me this outline here, right? And that could be an outline. I could paint these letters and all that stuff or whatever the case may be. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take the same pretty much texture setting that I had. Let's select those vectors again that I had here. 0 start depth, 1/16 of an inch, 3/8 and all that with that, again, that ball nose bit. And I'm going to calculate that toolpath inside those vectors, preview that visible toolpath on the numbers. And so what this gives me is, again, it kind of looks the same, right? You know, the background and all that stuff. But if I was painting, you know, it just gives my numbers a little bit of character. So I would be painting most likely in there. And this would probably have a white background. This would have a black or something in there. So it stands out, but it has a little bit of character to it. So, but it does right now, it kind of all looks the same. There could be a such thing as too much texture, right? I'm just giving you some visuals. And then here on this, we are going to take this and this. We're going to cut down V-carve toolpath. I'm going to go down 1/16 of an inch. Same V-bit. Don't need the 1/4 inch end mill for that one. Calculate. This is going to give me this kind of like raised Sunny Palm drive with this outside raised border, this kind of ring around it. So preview that visible toolpath. Okay. And again, there could be a thing where it's too much. Too much is of a good thing, is too much of one thing is too much. But we'll look at it with the textures where I'm about to, and we'll take the texture out of the back. We'll look at different combinations. So let me just get the final thing here. So here is going to be a texturing toolpath. It's going to start at that 1/16 of an inch, still using the same small ball nose bit, still using the same cut parameters and everything. But I am going to have it stay away from the border and the lines and everything by a 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to calculate that. Preview that visible toolpath. Okay, now let's look at this. Let's add some color. Let's add some color. So using the Toolpath color option here on this one, we'll go ahead and give that a Toolpath color of kind of like a maroon. Okay. And also this one as well. And that one. They all need to be maroon, all three of them. So maroon. Okay. And so if I turn the check marks off and everything, we'll see that, that color texture area in there, right? Now, the background texture, this one here, we'll give that a color of black. Okay. Along with the V carve, that will have a color of black. This will have a color of black. This will have a color of black. All right. And if I turn off the check mark, you'll see where we're heading right now with this. Okay. And then this texture in here, not that one. Let me find it. This texture in here, that one I need to move down with everything. We're going to give this a color of white. I don't know, whatever color matches your house and trim and that kind of thing, right? And everything. And so, we might have, something that looks like this. Now, let's say that I didn't want to color the background or anything, and I didn't want a texture in the background. Let's say that on the background, reset the preview. Let's look at this texture, this and that. This texture, that. Leave that texture off. And look at this, this, and this. So if we preview those visible toolpaths, right? So simulation resolution only affects the preview quality. Good. Lenny, is there a name for your double-sided tape that you use? Yes. Well, all right. Now, honestly, I might have to defer you to Garrett Fromm on this. He uses a Woodworker two-sided tape, and he has a video on it, it's a short, one of his shorts and everything on a two-sided tape. And I actually kind of like that product. Let me turn off the color here for just a second. I like that product. I use a carpet tape. Some people, I love it. I don't think it's a fiberglass carpet tape. It's Sure Tape, SHURTAPE on Amazon. Used to be at Home Depot, but Home Depot stop carrying it in my Home Depot, at least. So it is what it is. But I can't remember the name of the two-sided tape that Garrett Fromm, he has it in one of his short videos, but it's a really good tape for CNC projects. And it's a short, I think, one of his short videos, but Garrett Fromm, IDC Woodcraft. I say Garrett, but IDC Woodcraft. And it's Woodworker something. It's Woodworker two-sided tape, or the brand name. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but I would refer you to that one. It's a really good one. Nice, strong hold and everything. It's not too shifty, not too thick or too shifty or anything like that. And it's available in Canada, the US, you can get it everywhere. Sure Tape. I don't know if Sure Tape is available up in Canada, Ronnie, so that's why I'm kind of recommending. Spray is good forever. Wade, I really like CA glue and tape method. Yeah, there you go. CA glue and tape is another good way to go. I've never used that, but I know it's a very good method for sure. Wade, and Cherokee Vapor says, good evening. First time catching a live since you were on IDC with Garrett. Man, thanks, Cherokee. We're wrapping up now. We are officially wrapping up here in about 15, not 15 minutes, but about 2 to 3 minutes. About to say our goodbyes. But hopefully you were here earlier and you got to catch some of this. So cool stuff. So on this sign here, so let's say that with this, I didn't want a texture in the background. I just wanted a texture on my letters, right? And everything. And let's say I just wanted to, color the background. It could be that matching maroon color. Let's say I went white, right? Let's say I went white. White. Give me just a second. Let me get my mind what I'm trying to do there. And then let's say on this texture that I changed that one up. That's that one. Yeah, I changed that one up to, let's go with the maroon to match what's below, right? And on that texture, it doesn't color very well in the texture toolpath, man. That's because there's surface area that hasn't been cut right there. So give me a second. Little trick just for visual purposes only. I'm going to take this vector right here. I'm going to do a pocket. I'm going to do a pocket cut. 0.001 inches deep. My smallest bit, just so it gets as much as possible in those radius corners and all. Calculate, right? Preview the visible toolpath. And now I can add a color to that toolpath and it'll fill in the rest. Just visual stuff. All right. So here is, assign the background could be whatever color. I went with white, but we've got those textured surface areas there and on our numbers and things. Just to kind of give them just a little bit of body, a little bit of character, right? So that's a way we could go. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to just take tonight's class and stuff and kind of just think about these different things and think about where you could possibly enhance or add a little bit of texture. Don't go overkill, right? But, just add a little bit of character. It could take a sign from a $25 sign to a $75 sign to a $175 sign, right? By that, that extra enhancement, that extra element, and a lot of different things that you can do and stuff. So keep that in mind. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. That is the end of the class. Let's see here. Cherokee says, I sometimes use composite finish nails, right? Yes, I've never tried the composite finish nails, but they're great. Composite finish nails or that composite plastic nails very well. I don't know, Cherokee, can you let know in the chat, do you have to have a special nail gun? Is it a composite nail gun? Or can I use composite nails in my regular air guns, my Brad nailer and stuff like that? Let me know, because I haven't used them yet. But those are great because they'll hold. They break off and they're pretty well hidden. You can kind of do a little bit of filler and stuff like that. But if your bit hits them, it's not going to do anything. So very cool stuff. Thanks, Roger S. Yeah, pretty cool sign and just a little way that. Think about, we added a little texture. Now I did do a V bit around the edge. Look, I got a little bit of overshot right there on my paint, filler. That was this toolpath, just so you know, that was this little toolpath right here. If I turned that color off, I wouldn't get that there. But anyway, a little bit of touch up, but 60-degree V bit would clean that up. If that is texture from my texturing tool right there, and that 22-degree V bit didn't quite give me enough angle to clean up that edge like that, then I would notice that right before I took it off the table. What I would do in that case, just a real quick fix here real quickly. I would come in with that Toolpath. I would switch from the 22 to maybe the 60 or the 90. I would probably drop it down just another 10 thousandths of an inch, so 0.725. Calculate that toolpath. Preview that toolpath. Did I just hit reset preview? Oh, man. I do that all the time. Let me put that everything back real quick. I always do that. All right, let's try this. Preview the visible toolpath. Almost had it. We were almost out the door. You can use them in a regular gun, but you have to have the pressure regulated. Yep. Test what's going to do right and everything for the wood. But yeah, that's another great way of holding it and everything. I've never really tried it, but I know a lot of people that do, and it's perfect for when you just need a quick, hold down and all that. So that's cool stuff. All right, listen. After this preview here, we're going to say our goodbyes. So let me see if I missed anything. Don't forget to give Laney a thumbs up. That's great. And also, I got to give a shout out here. Now, listen, I do have a paid membership on this channel. Paid members, we do live classes at 7:30 every Wednesday night. In those classes, we do... Hold on, there's something. Hold on a second. In those classes, we do, bear with me just a second. I had something checked that wasn't supposed to be checked. Preview the visible toolpath. We do classes. Paid members get discounts. Silver members get a 10% discount on anything bought on builditTV.com, all of our models and project files. Gold members get 50% discount. Members exclusive, they get to see content not like pre-recorded content, not live content, but any content that I release, they get to see it 24 hours before the public does. The memberships also, the paid memberships also, we go into depth, more in-depth collaborations and stuff in an exclusive private group that's not searchable on Facebook called the Spindle TV Exclusive Group. It's $9.99 for a silver member each month, $19.99 for a gold member. Think about that if you want more exclusive content and more access to me. Gold members get access to me with video chat, one-on-one video chat each month. But also any one of my members can email me for more, exclusive look. And the last thing I want to do is add a maroon color to here to fill that in to finish off this sign, and that will complete our sign. Cleaned up our edges there, show those rough edges. They're all nice and clean now. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. So think about that. If you want to know more about just want to know more about what the paid memberships do, they help benefit the channel so I can keep things free and all that good fun stuff. But they on the channel, there's a join button. Just click it and there's like a little video that plays that goes a little bit more in detail. Check that out, ladies and gentlemen, because it helps support the channel. And then the last thing that I'm going to say, the last thing I'm going to say is on builditTV.com in the shop. Let me pull it over on the screen here. This is my last goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. On Build It TV, we do have quite a lot of models of different animals and U.S. flags and wall clocks and project files and frames and religions and holidays and all that stuff. When you click on View All, right, there is on the View All down below, there's all kinds of different categories and all. But gold members and silver members, you're watching. I know some of you are in here. Brooks Martin, one of them, and all that. Roger S. and all that stuff. All you guys and girls. But use your discount codes. And if you don't know your discount code, email me. But 50% off for your gold members, 10% off for your silver members. But I got a new coming up for 4th of July, right? I've got the ultimate flag model kit for you. It's currently right now $85, but with those discounts, you can get them for half off, right? Up to half off and stuff, and 10% off and stuff. But in here, it's packed this new file here. There are there's the standard flag. There's vectors to carve on the flag for 4th of July and Independence Day, the Declaration of Independence. There is waves, different waves. There's 3 different wave styles that you can add to any flag. There is the different military symbols and everything in this project pack. There's the flat standard flag. There's the Betsy Ross flag. There's the wavy Betsy Ross flag. All kinds of things you can mix and match and all that stuff. You got to keep in mind, just like on the disclosure here, VCarve Pro, you can only import 1 third-party model file per project. Vectric Aspire users, you can import multiple third-party model files. These are STL files. They're third-party models, so you could be able to use one, but not a combination of one and another. But there's also in here a wavy flag that you could use with the vectors to do the Independence Day carving, on the wave and stuff. And then you could also use those waves, those 3 different wave patterns, with maybe a vector pack combination of something like this, right? This 8-pack of Independence Day flags, right? Let me get zoomed in here. So here's that Independence Day again, 4th of July, 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 right? 4th of July is coming up, but you could add some wave to those with those wave features and all, and a little bit of clipping. You can clip them down and everything, so you can kind of combine. Keep that in mind. We have, we have project files and stuff. The Patriot flags. I don't know if any of you are bow hunters and all. I don't know why on the Patriot flags, this is America the Beautiful and things, but I got bow hunters. So I got a female bow hunter. I got a male bow hunter. I've got eagle busting through. I got a bow hunter with a deer. I've got deer seen, that kind of, I don't know where the bow hunters come from, but hey, what the heck, all those kind of flags. But check out builditTV.com/shop. I'd love you for that. It helps support the channel. There's a bunch of different 3D models. And now these are just 2D that could be matched with 3Ds. But like I said, along with that flag combination, I have other flags and eagles and the United States and things like that, AR-15 models in the just general animals or clocks or frames. I've got all kinds of different, models. I don't have a great big collection, but hey, they're there, right? So check it out sometime. I'd appreciate that support. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Let's say goodnight now, and we'll see you later. Thanks.